Okay, we're gonna get started soon. Does anybody know where British Columbia went? On their way? Okay, great. Just a quick note, whoever is on the resolutions committee, if you're in this room, they're going to be meeting in the room over there where we've been eating. Is anybody in here right now that's part of the resolutions committee? Okay, they're meeting in there. Yeah, right now. And then who else are you missing? Saskatchewan? Who is your resolutions committee member?
I'm gonna go. No, I'm gonna go sit over there to give my report. I'm just doing a presentation first, and then I'm gonna sit over there, and you're gonna be here doing. Are we ready?
Yeah, I think so. Okay, everyone, we're gonna get started, and I'm gonna turn the mic over to our president, Melanie Omenahu.
Good afternoon. I hope you all enjoyed your lunch. Where's my little Miss Marilyn, by the way? So I want to tell you about our Mush 'em and Cook 'em puppets before I get going. We actually bought these so that we can raffle them off. There probably will be a second prize too that we'll acquire and we'll raffle off. We couldn't get the tickets here in time to raffle them off because we had to have 45 days to apply for a raffle license. And so as soon as that stuff is in place, we'll advertise on our Facebook and website and places, and we'll send out books of tickets to all the women's organizations, and the money that's going to be raised by the raffle is going to go to the Cindy Gladue family to help support them in this upcoming year because they have another trial to go through. So we're just going to try to help Donna and her family, try to help and encourage them and support them as much as possible during this next trial. We're working on getting counseling in place, and I know that many of you already know this, but it's so costly to sit in a downtown courtroom each and every day trying to be a part of these things, and we're hoping that it doesn't become a burden that she has to carry on her own. So that's the story about those. Is Miss Marilyn coming? Cheryl, do you have your hand up, or you're just beating? Okay. I'd like my board to come up here. There's Sharon Cadeau from Ontario.
Suzanne's waving her hand. You can't see her in the bright light.
Oh, yes, Suzanne, sorry.
I know the bright light is right in your eyes there, and it's not me. I just have a question. I don't know how taxing it would be on the LFMO staff. I'm wondering if it would be possible for when there is court dates coming up for the Gladue family, if the LFMO could maybe put out an email blast or put it on some way notify us so that we can be focusing our prayers, you know, just.
I will make sure that we post stuff. I have to be careful what I post, but we'll post stuff to let you know that those families need support and prayers and your blessings while we're doing this. Absolutely. Is that all you had? Sorry, this light is so bright over here. So I'd like Sharon Cadu from Ontario, Anita Campbell from Manitoba, Tammy Ma from Saskatchewan, Marilyn Lizzie from Alberta. Where did she go? And Victoria from BC. If you guys could all come up here. Anita's working her buns off over there. She needs a break. No, don't be sorry. Is Marilyn, did anybody track her down?
I texted her. She said that she's on her way.
We'll hear her laugh soon. Anyway, I'll get started. So it is true, these are the tartans. They're the Grant tartans. And when I tell you that they're the Grant tartans, they're from the Grant family, the Cuthbert Grant tartan, the Grant family. These are their tartans that we've selected. You'll see that LFMO has a badge on each one of them. And who these are being given to, because as much as everybody thinks Melanie does a lot of work, who also does a lot of work is my board in each one of these provinces. And some of it's very challenging because there isn't always been a great deal of support to help make sure that they were able to do the work that they needed to do. And so to be a part of this and to be responsible for what they're doing and trying to keep Métis women as a priority in each one of their provinces with very little or no funding has been a work of passion and a work from the heart. And I love each and every one of these people. I've spent many, many years with some of them and have gotten to know all of them very, very well. And I believe that they're the ones that are deserving of the first tartan shawls. So I'm not as good. Still no Marilyn. Thank you. Purple. Okay.
We're going to have to ask you to come up to the front.
Very welcome. Okay, Victoria would like to come and say a few words.
I just wanted to extend thanks on behalf of myself and thank the gesture towards the board. And I just wanted to mention that my great-great-grandmother was Cuthbert Grant's sister. So this is especially meaningful for me. So thank you. As a descendant of Cuthbert Grant Sr., it's a real honor. Thank you.
So these are the women that you guys owe a great tribute to for all the amazing work that they do for us every day. Victoria asked if they could shawl me, and I have to be honest, the reason they can is because Lisa shawls me every time she takes me out somewhere. And so you'll notice that if you ever see the pictures of us like at the standing committees or the Senate committee or any of the official places that we go, Lisa has one of those shawls on me even when it's 110 above outside and I'm cooking. So I am going to beg your indulgence. I'm going to give my report from the table there instead in this bright light. I'm sorry, I'm feeling better today than I was when I first got here, but I'm still a little on the weaker side. My staff, Samantha, is going to do the PowerPoint as I go through the presentation with you. Okay. I too want to acknowledge that this is the homeland of the Métis Nation, the homeland of the Métis Nation of Alberta, and it's the traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Titsu Nation, and the Iyer Nakota Nations. As you all know already who I am, I'm proud to stand here and before you in this role, and I look forward to all the conversations we'll have and continue to have over the next day and a half. It's my pleasure to share a bit of the victories of Métis women that we have been celebrating over the past year. More than ever before, we have been invited to tables where once our needs were overlooked and we were wrapped into a pan-Indigenous approach that excluded us. Some groundbreaking fundamental pieces have been completed this year to help improve the outcomes for Métis women across the homeland. We are working diligently on the pathway that has been charted for us and by us, and the results are all evident. We continue to foster strategic relationships with other national Indigenous women's organizations. We continue our participation alongside the national and international women's organizations, and we continue to engage with grassroots Métis women to ensure our policy and project directions reflect their realities. Nurturing relationships with both government and non-governmental organizations is a significant objective of our work to expand opportunities for Métis women in this country. We are pleased to be at many of the tables that were once unreceptive to LFMO. LFMO has written no fewer than 14 proposals this year, and we've been fortunate to successfully secure funding to open up many new opportunities. LFMO Otipemisiwak received basic organizational capacity funding to increase its basic organizational capacity to manage our operations fully and to bring funding to a level whereby LFMO can respond to current and emergency emerging priorities for Métis women. The federal government's gender budgeting has led to increased pressure on us to ensure culturally specific intersectional gendered lenses is applied to the priorities areas established through the permanent bilateral mechanism tables. We also work towards ensuring the application of a Métis gendered intersectional lens is reflected and applied to all areas of impact to Métis women. LFMO has built its capacity to work with the Métis National Council. LFMO has positioned itself as a subject matter expert, ensuring that the reality of Métis women is considered in all decision-making and policy areas. LFMO is the direct link between the permanent bilateral mechanism working tables and the engagement with Métis women. LFMO received this funding to fully and effectively manage operations and to address capacity in the areas of human resources, core meetings, and office operating costs. Funding sources for 2018 and 19. LFMO has received funding through a number of sources this fiscal year, including Crown Indigenous Relations, where we've received BOC funding, enhanced capacity funding, the culturally competent GBA Plus funding. That's the gender-based analysis work that we do on the permanent bilateral priorities, MMIWG research, and the Rights and Recognition Framework Report, which is also provided in your kits. From Indigenous Services Canada, we received a small amount of women's health funding, which we are also going to be reporting on. In Justice Canada, we received funding to do our trauma-informed toolkit. Status of Women, now known as the Department for Wage and Gender Equity, funded us to do a needs assessment. And Employment and Social Development Canada, with the support of the Métis National Council and its governing members, funds us to be a part of the early childhood learning and child care conversations. The province of Ontario was the one that funded us to do the She is Indigenous campaign. And we did receive independent funding, but I want to acknowledge here at this point that independent funding, by far the majority, was by the Provincial Council of the Métis Nation of Alberta, who contributed $20,000 to help us to go to the Supreme Court of Canada with the Cindy Gladue case. And I acknowledge them and thank them for that. We've had core meetings that we've worked on over this past year. Of course, last year in October, a year ago now, we had our annual meeting in Toronto, and we've had ongoing meetings with the permanent bilateral mechanisms, which is a part of what Métis National Council does with its first, second, and third year priorities. And we've been at the First Ministers meetings and some of the provincial, federal, and territorial meetings, as well as meetings with the Prime Minister, along with MNC and all of its governing members. We've been a part of trilateral working groups to end violence against women, which have taken us to places like New York and Mexico City, and has had us meeting. And when they call them trilateral, it's Indigenous women of Canada, US, and Mexico that have those meetings, and we've had several of them. And there's anticipation that there'll be another one coming up in this fall sometime. We've been involved, or I sit actually on the Indigenous Advisory Committee for the multi-partner oil spill research. And actually, that's an initiative for when oil gets spilt in the oceans. We are trying to be proactive and come up with environmentally adequate ways as an international part of the international community to try to find ways to prevent the damage that it causes to our oceans, especially in the Arctic. I sit on the Indigenous Women's Circle with the Minister for the Status of Women, and we've been a part of the Indigenous Women's Wellbeing Advisory Committee. We've done the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Women, Indigenous Issues. That was in March. It was the 17th forum. And we were also at the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. When we've gone to be a part of the United Nations Status of Women meetings or the Permanent Forum, we're there as invited guests and a part of the Canadian delegation. So, and we've been honored to be there with them. We've had many meetings with the Department of Women and Gender Equality, including they've always made sure the meetings are open to their federal, provincial, and territorial ministries, so we have many national meetings with them. We've been on the Global Affairs Canada Committee in meetings, and other than that, we've also done panels like Exploring Reconciliation. So a group from the U of A had done the Voices of the Voiceless, and I was one of the panelists on those committees. So next we're going to go to some of our operational stuff. Sorry about that, just let me get a drink. So our office is actually at 340 McLaren Street in Suite 303. We're on the 3rd floor. Our office, as you had heard in the finance report, had expanded from 2018 to 2019 to accommodate our additional staff and stuff. Thanks, my girl. And so we now have four significant offices and a boardroom and a small kitchenette in our location. And you're always welcome to come and visit us there. Our core funding provides support for the office and the organizational operations to ensure that LFMO is equipped to participate fully in both the Métis Nation and the broader Indigenous environment. And with the Canadian government. Sorry about that. Don't you love getting sick at ideal times? So, our basic organization capacity is necessary to ensure that LFMO is meeting the expressed goals and priorities that have been established by you and working throughout the Me Too homeland. Of course, I didn't cough the whole time I was here before this, so thank you guys. They're all trying to take care of me here. Okay, to meet the increased demand as well as expanding to priority areas, LFMO has expanded its human resource capacity. In 2018 and 19, LFMO operated, actually I want to tell you, at the beginning of 2018, LFMO operated with Melanie. We then went to have Melanie and one staff member, and now we are at a place where it's myself and I have 4 full-time staff. And we have had, thank you so much, we have had, now everybody's passing cough drops to me. We have had some part-time staff too. So for instance, on the She is Indigenous campaign, we had an Inuit woman named Tanya that came and helped us facilitate and coordinate that project. So over a period of a couple of years, we have seen significant growth with our staff, and we continue to work hard to try to increase our staff and increase the objectives and make sure that we're able to do the kind of research and things that we need to do to move forward with Métis women's rights. Additional work that we've been doing is LFMO was provided with funding for early capacity funding to support early involvement in the co-development of the culturally gender-based analysis, which is what they call the CCGBA+. And you'll see some of that work is all within your reports and kits that you received. We hosted an engagement session with Métis women from across the homeland and invited Métis women, elders, leaders, academics, and individuals who have worked on building and assisting Métis women in bringing forward issues that relate to identifying the topics related to a distinction-based and gender-based analysis. There were conversations on gaps that exist, the approaches needed to address these gaps, and the importance of having allies in assisting Métis women to move forward as we develop a Métis-specific gender-based analysis toolkit that would be inclusive of our LGBTQ2S elements of our nation. We do really need to work on that too, girls, because I don't want to be the one that offends anybody by whatever acronyms they choose us to use. We also had an opportunity to address the issues related to ensuring Métis inclusion on missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in April 2018. The theme of our discussion was to begin to understand Métis-specific experiences and root causes of violence against Métis women and girls. We aim to discuss Métis evidence processes, such as what data is available from a Métis perspective and how to access it, as well as what data is required moving forward to fill the gaps. LFMO will consider this guidance from this discussion when moving forward with research and data collection specific to Métis women and girls. Enhanced capacity. The enhanced capacity funding furthered LFMO's expressed strategic goal to build a strong, successful, and responsible organization whose voice is heard throughout the Métis Nation. Ensuring that LFMO is the conduit, which is Métis-specific intersectional lens is applied with the permanent bilateral mechanism process and stated priority areas of the Métis Nation is overreaching objective of ensuring LFMO's capacity. Of primary importance is the role of LFMO in ensuring that it hears the voices of the women and the Métis Nation. In this light, enhancing our capacity ensures further engagement and collaboration with constituents throughout our homeland. The newly filled office administration position has set LFMO on a course of financial sustainability. Previously, with our relationship with the Métis National Council, LFMO relied on existing administrative communication and financial processes. Now LFMO is creating a favorable environment to ensure an autonomous system that is developed and sustained for LFMO's independence. Project activities this year have included engage in additional committees and subcommittees arising from the priority areas of the permanent bilateral mechanism, actively participating in the Métis Nation senior official bi-weekly meetings, developing financial processes unique to LFMO, coordinate LFMO board meeting to inform and review policy work. We increase social media presence and we develop LFMO's official responses in developing press releases and other kinds of correspondence that we've been doing. Now we'll talk about the missing and murdered Indigenous women and give you guys an update on that. On June 5th, 2018, Minister of Crown and Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs Carolyn Bennett made an announcement regarding the extension of the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's Inquiry. Minister Bennett stated the government did not support an extension of the inquiry, nor did it support an additional budget. There was an extension granted to change the final report's deadline to June 1st, 2019. Minister Bennett further announced that there would be $21.3 million invested over 3 years for health supports and family information liaison service delivery and would extend that for 1 more year. Finally, it was announced, and by the way, those resources for family supports actually go to the provincial governments for them to hire family liaison people to work with our families. Finally, it was announced that there would be $10 million in commemoration funds available. LFMO initiated a press release stating it supported Minister Bennett's decision. As an organization, LFMO had made the position of the Métis Nation very clear. LFMO believed that an investment into families and survivors was an imperative and that families should not be subjected to a 2-year extension before addressing some of the many overwhelming issues that were being realized by the Indigenous people facing trauma from their experiences. The inquiry was granted a 6-month extension from December 2017 and to June 2018, and it was the best possible move for the government to have made. LFMO was pleased to hear the new monies were allotted directly to families, communities, and to improving much-needed health, healing, and wellness services. LFMO has been open about our concerns regarding the inquiry's exclusion of Métis women, girls, and survivors. We released a press release in March 2018 and noted that the inquiry was not fulfilling its mandate. We continue to ensure that Métis-driven research was conducted to ensure that unique experiences of Métis families of missing and murdered Métis women and girls were included in the final report for the inquiry. Upon its release, we were dismayed to find that Métis experiences were not included as they should have been, and as a result, LFMO had written its own final report, which you guys all have received a copy of, to speak to the Métis experiences of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in Canada. This report is based heavily on family stories and subject matters, experts, and contributions. Métis-specific research about missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. LFMO has set up forth a task to gather Métis-specific research around the MMIWG and the lack of Métis-specific information that is available. We have expressed this in the interim report of the National Inquiry. LFMO's research addresses 3 key areas, including considerations required for Métis-specific databases, targeted research to fill gaps on Métis-specific information, and analysis of the root causes of violence against Métis women and girls. Métis community engagement and knowledge transfer, including a scan of programs and services that are available and have that accessible across the Métis Nation at knowledge transfer meetings. 3, we've done recommendations related to Métis experiences, needs, and perspectives about MMIWG to find solutions that will reduce and end violence against Métis women and girls, bringing a distinction-based approach to the findings of the National Inquiry. The research and data collection for this report took mixed methods of approach. We employed a combination of both quantitative and qualitative methodologies. Additionally, we honored and continue to honor traditional knowledge and teachings through the guidance of our elders and knowledge keepers. Within this project, you will find statistical analysis, storytelling, literature reviews, identified data gaps, and filled in data gaps from grassroots research. Additionally, for this report, LFMO engaged a committee of experts. These experts included grassroots Métis women from a variety of different regions across the homeland who were involved in a number of varying fields of study and practice, which allowed for the diversity of opinion and robust set of recommendations that were developed. We created a final report with 64 recommendations within it. We have entitled our recommendations Calls for, Charlotte help me out, Ms. Gatow, which is the Michif word for change. These recommendations seek to bring change to the lives of Métis women and girls, LGBTQ2S people, and their families. On the Cindy Gladue case, we were official interveners in the Bradley Barton versus Canada case. And we went to the Supreme Court. Jean Taillé was our lawyer, as some of you would have heard on Friday night. She presented an amazing defense and brought forward just how objectified they had made Cindy Gladue as a Métis woman within that court case. In fact, there were very few times in that case that she was ever referred to as a woman. She was known as a hooker, a drug addict, and many other things. But we persevered and went with her family and took her family to the Supreme Court with us. And the Supreme Court came back in May and ordered that there will be a new trial for Bradley Barton that will happen in either January or February of this upcoming year. We continue to vow to support the Gladue family as they seek justice for Cindy Gladue as a mother, a daughter, a sister, and a friend to very many. On the Rights and Recognition Framework, in October 2018, LFMO received an invitation from the Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations, Carolyn Bennett, to put forward a policy submission that provides Métis women's perspective on the recognition and implementation of the rights framework, or as it's sometimes referred to, RIRF. Following the launch, Canada worked collaboratively with all Indigenous people to fulfill a plan that would result in legislation and policies that would recognize, among other things, the inherent rights of self-determination and self-government for Indigenous peoples. As such, Canada would finally acknowledge that the Métis Nation possesses those inherent rights which are protected under Section 35 of the Constitution Act of 1982, and would finally begin a nation-to-nation and government-to-government relationship. Subsequently, Indigenous groups were invited to offer their input on the framework. An engagement discussion guide was sent out for responses, which could include written responses, emails, responses, or participation in a series of engagement sessions. LFMO put forward a written response with recommendations related to barriers, governance, and programming. That's also contained within your kits. And I will tell you as a bit of an update since that time, there was supposed to be legislation that was moved forward to bring this thing into place, but because of many First Nations objecting, that actually didn't happen the way they thought it was. But I do know that many of our provincial governments, Métis governments, have signed self-governing agreements, and I know others are still working on theirs, but I know that we're in a lot better state than we were 3 years ago. So I do take my hat off to all of them for the great work that's been done. Métis cultural relevant approach to intersectional gender-based analysis. LFMO identified the need for developing a Métis-specific gender-based analysis on GBA. We wanted to develop a toolkit to ensure that the unique realities facing Métis women are incorporated into public policies across the consortium from development to implementation. The tool enables LFMO to challenge biases on the impact of processes, policy, and programming on Métis women and girls in order to set the stage for an attitudinal, operational, and theoretical shift in thought. LFMO's Métis-specific GBA toolkit is practical, user-friendly, and can be raised, it's also within your kits too, by the way, user-friendly and can be used to raise Métis-specific considerations throughout the GBA process. It was built from the Government of Canada's own GBA toolkit and was adapted to make a GBA culturally relevant to Métis women and girls and the LGBTQ2S+ people. The Métis-specific GBA toolkit was used throughout the development of the LFMO's annual report, LFMO has referred to two different diagrams, both of which you were shown yesterday, to illustrate the concepts considered in the Métis-specific GBA toolkit. The tool is meant to be a living document that is constantly updated to reflect the realities of Métis women and girls and the LGBTQ2S+ people and their families. The diagram you see here is used to depict on an intersectional understanding of Métis people from culturally relevant perspective. Adopting an intersectional approach enables you to see an individual as a whole being with multiple identity factors and allows for a holistic approach. The core of the flower represents Métis culture and gender identity. The word cloud represents external influences on our Métis identity, and the inner petals represents the various GBA plus identity factors that intersect to make up individual experiences of Métis people. The outer petals represent Métis-specific identity factors that may not otherwise be included in a GBA plus analysis. These are the contemporary culturally specific identity factors. The roots of the flowers represent the historical and cultural makeup of the Métis communities. These are the historical, culturally specific identity factors. The infinity diagram that you see is, the flower diagram is also paired with an infinity sign diagram seen here to capture the whole Métis approach to GBA plus and to focus on the steps that would be taken to consult with Métis women and girls. As you can see here, there are six key steps in this process: to identify an issue, to challenge the assumptions of that issue, to gather all the facts, to co-develop options and recommendations, to monitor and to evaluate. And we can do that with every issue and every process. We've also developed a trauma-informed toolkit that we were funded from Justice Canada for. LFMO has completed its work on the toolkit, and we are just finalizing the facilitator's guide, which we will be releasing as soon as we have all the details sorted out. The project was received well during the focus group test, and we will be disseminating that toolkit to you. The She is Indigenous Awareness Campaign. Many of you may have seen it. It has its own website, sheisindigenous.ca. So when we developed the She is Indigenous campaign, we had gone through a process of where we were working with other national Indigenous organizations, as well as the Government of Ontario, to try to develop a process to create a campaign that demonstrated Indigenous women were not a disposable part of our society, and that we were important, and that we played very significant roles within our community. They hired a media firm to try to bring forward the story about for the campaign, and the Government of Ontario and the media firm failed really miserably. In fact, they created a campaign that triggered Indigenous women. So the Government of Ontario approached LFMO AGM and asked us if we would like to try to create the campaign. And we did take it on with a couple of caveats. One is that it had to be a strength-based campaign. We were not going to make Indigenous women a picture of being victims. And the second thing is that we had complete creative control. They agreed to those terms, and we agreed to do the campaign. So our campaign now was launched at the end of June, but it was worked on over 2 years, and that's what you can see in the demonstration of the financial statements. Our campaign features video content supplemented by other mediums, such as print and social media, to target non-Indigenous populations, so that they can see that Indigenous women are important parts of our community. It shows a very diverse group of people, In that campaign, by the way, we have several people here that are a part of that campaign. One of them was Bonnie Vandell, and Tammy Ma was with her, and Pearl Garbona was also a part of the campaign. There you are, sorry. Pearl was also one of the videos. And so we had 3 Métis people, 3 First Nations, and 3 Inuit that were reflected in the original videos. The website at sheisindigenous.ca, there's also a Facebook group or a Facebook page and a Twitter account, as well as Instagram and some other. These guys are way more socially adept than I am. Anyway, we encourage you to bring us forward pictures and bios of our Métis women from across this homeland, and we will highlight them on She is Indigenous. And I'm really proud of this campaign because one of the things that happened at the beginning of June when the commissioners gave their report is they tried to launch a media blitz about something to do with Are You Change or something. Where's my Lisa? Anyway, it said something about the thing died as fast as it came off their lips, and it never went anywhere. Ours is still a very active campaign that gets a lot of insight and a lot of people visiting, and we're highlighting new women each and every day on our campaign. So please take the time to visit our She's Indigenous campaign. Send us your pictures and your bios. We will proudly put all of our Indigenous women up on our campaign. So I want to talk about the Women's Forum now. And what happened in March of 2018 is that we invited women, Métis women from across our homeland, a very diverse group of people, to come and participate in a policy forum.
Would you like me to show the video? It's cute out. There's a video from She is Indigenous.
Oh, okay, yeah, sorry. She's going to show you the video from the She is Indigenous campaign, so it'll give me a minute to catch my breath.
Wasn't your grandma and grandpa's wedding, wasn't it like a 3-day?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, my grandparents got married in Gruard in 1898, and there was a big write-up in the Edmonton Journal about this Métis wedding in Gruard. It lasted 3 days. They went through 15 sets of fiddle strings, 3 steers, and about 5 bags of potatoes. My name is Lloyd. I'm retired, and this is my daughter, Shawnee.
I am Métis. I run my own public relations company.
Family has always been a very strong part of my upbringing. So having my own kids being part of all of our celebrations was something I wanted to instill in them.
I feel like I'm raising my daughter the same way I was raised. You know, we're always at family gatherings. We're always going to events. She comes to a lot of my work events with me too, and I know that she feels a sense of belonging there.
My uncle had opened up or started a friendship center in Peace River. So I got involved in that and saw the needs in the Aboriginal community. So from there I got into the world of employment, and employment is such a big factor in making social change.
Both my dad and my mom have been involved in, I would say, the Indigenous community as a whole. As I grew up, it was never something that I had to learn in school or have an aha moment about. It was just always instilled in me through both my parents, my grandparents. I feel like that work ethic has just been woven into me, and I want to be as strong and work as hard to ensure that everyone has an equal opportunity to be just as successful and hopefully even more successful. You know, that's all I would want for my kids.
Well, Shawnee she gets onto something and she sticks to it. She hangs in there.
The work I do on a regular basis is trying to bring awareness and change attitudes towards Indigenous people as a whole and some of the issues that they face. And, you know, we've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. We recently were on a field trip and they were talking about the Métis sash, and she kept looking at me going, you know, Mom, I know you have one and I'm going to have one too, because I do tell her that was an honor that it was given to me. It's not something that we just get. There's been so many risk takers in my lineage that have done more than enough struggling so that I can live the life that I do. There is still the struggle of trying to elevate things like First Nations still don't have access to clean drinking water, and racism is an issue. More of my day-to-day struggle in my work is trying to push these issues forward so that change can happen.
This is Shawnee, and she is tenacious.
Thank you, Ashley. There's a couple of things that I should add here. Shani was one of the Métis women that we featured in here. But Laura Langstaff, the music that you hear in the background is a song that she created for the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women campaign. And so I also acknowledge and thank her for the opportunity for us to use that music in all of the work that we've been doing. And okay, so we'll go on to talk about the Women's Forum. In March 2018, we held our first policy forum with a group of diverse and women and girls who came together with us in Ottawa. The forum's purpose was to create a dialogue with grassroots Métis women to inform project work and policy perspectives on some of the things that we're working on. Because within your kits, you'll notice there's things that I'm not touching on here that we've been engaged and involved with, that we have put the policy papers in your thing for your leisure to look at them. Things like the forced sterilizations issues, child and family services, and the work that we've been doing in relating to the whole Millennium Scoop issues. We've been involved with the 60 Scoop. There's many things that my report would be 2 days long if I had to report everything we were doing. But the 3.5-day forum that we had brought together people so that we could look and find out what their perspectives and where they wanted to see us go with those kinds of things. And the participants were amazing. And I appreciate all the work that they did and the commitment they made to stick it out with us for 3.5 long days in Ottawa so that we could do our work, which helped form where we were going. Our participants included youth, women heading lone parent families, seniors, elders, Two-Spirit, the LGBTQ2QS+ people, women living with disabilities, or disabled women who have precarious housing, or street-involved women dealing with the justice system, or women who were incarcerated and had been recently out of incarceration, or people who'd been involved with the child welfare system, and people that were from our local, regional, and national governance structures. The forum had informational sessions, interactive sessions, panel discussions, and presentations even from Minister Bennett and Deputy Minister Gina Wilson. The last thing that we're going to do, and I'm not going to talk about this too much because we kind of went over it yesterday and we're going to go back and rewrite and revisit our report, was the work that we did on the needs assessment for the Métis Women's Blueprint. Our staff did do a lot of work and things, but we did see some of the shortcomings in what we need to be able to present to help separate what was responses coming from our Métis Nation governments and responses that we were receiving from non-Indigenous and other partners that were being asked questions. So we will do some better work on that and bring back a rewritten report to our assembly here. The only other thing that there is the annual report, the written one that you guys all got in your kit. Please review it at your leisure. There's a lot of information in there about some of the things we've been involved with, but I want to talk to you about this front cover. So many of you probably know this is my mother. And she was a part of, she's the reason why I'm here, obviously, but I mean more than just that. For any of you that knew her, I was walking on her coattails all the time, and it's probably what led me to be where I am today. But she actually, 25 years ago, was the co-chair for Canada on the Beijing Committee for Women going to the Beijing UN Forum 25 years ago. And there's going to be a process coming up in this upcoming year to go back to Beijing to do a report as to where we're at 25 years later. So they keep telling us we need to honor where we've come from. And I know Sharon is one of those women that keeps trying to tell me to honor and acknowledge my mother for her contributions in the work that we've done. And so that's why you see her face on here and on the notebook. And I'm very proud of her. And that's my report.
Would someone like to move to adopt the President's report?
Suzanne Jackson, Ontario. I move to adopt it.
Thank you. Seconder?
Wendy Schneider, British Columbia. I second that motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion about the report? Questions? Okay, all those in favor?
That was way too easy.
Opposed? Abstentions? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, so now I would like to invite up spokesperson Marilyn Lise to come up and present the secretary's report, or if she prefers to do it from her seat, I suppose.
She did with the minutes.
That's it?
That's it.
Oh, okay.
Just kidding, never mind.
All right.
Treasurer did hers.
All right. Okay, so we are now going to move on to the Provincial Women's Organization reports. So we're going to go from east to west, if that is all right with everybody. So we will be starting with the Métis Nation of Ontario Women's Council. So spokesperson Sharon Cadeau, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'd like to thank the elder for the beautiful prayer this morning. It put us in a good way. And I'd like to thank the two youth that are our chair and co-chair. It's really nice to see this, you know, and it's, we shouldn't all be just surprised about it. We should be honored, you know, and it should be just something that happens all the time. So thank you so much for being there and, you know, guiding us at our AGM. Thank you. With the Métis Nation of Ontario Women's Council, I want to thank, I guess, the advocacy that's happening with President Omenaho, because it's opening up doors for us in the provincial levels. So we were the very first group, Métis-specific group, to be funded with the status of women, and I think that's something to be very proud of. Unfortunately, our program is wrapping up this year, so we're just waiting to see. So we're going to have a board meeting right after the election, and we're keeping our fingers crossed it's going to maintain the same party, and then you know, we'll be able to reapply for funds with the board itself, the women that make up the board. I wish to thank each and every one of them because they've given among themselves, not just it's like we had no money to give them, so they go out, they do their work, and take from their own pocket. And that's really not right. So with the amount of money that we got from the government of Canada, we're able to give a small amount of support, to our women's reps here. And it's probably won't even cover their costs, but it's something that should have happened a long time ago. So I want to thank them. One of the things, I guess over the past while, I think, there's always disagreements within a community, and it's just like a family itself. I don't know of any family, because I feel all of us are a family, and I don't know of any family that doesn't fight. And I think, the same thing happened with us in Ontario, but it made us stronger and understand each other better. And this board now, it's, like they support each other, and we all support each other, and it's just fabulous. I want to thank them all very much. One of the things that we found to start all of our meetings and to start all of our AGMs with all of the women is we adopted the 4 agreements. And so we always ask the women there, these are our rules for the meeting, and we ask them to abide by that. And it makes a very good meeting with, if there's disagreements, the women have a safe space, that they're able to, go out and not really bring personal issues within. If you don't know the 4 agreements, it's the UN uses it, so it's something that it was Joan Riggs that actually helped us with that, so we're very honored. And I guess I want to thank our support staff. We have Lane that's here, and we haven't had a support staff since Lisa was stolen from us. So I want to remind Melanie of that. And so Lane, thank you so much, Lane. We all are so appreciative of you, and it's we look forward to working with you. So thank you so much for coming, and thank you all, ladies, for being so open. Because Lane goes, "What do you want me to do?" And I said, "Just have fun and learn." And I just see that she's getting to know everybody, and it's just fabulous. Want to make her feel at home. So thank you. And one of the things that I want to say, I've been here a long time, since I guess my first AGM was 2003. And there's a couple of women that are still around this table today. And I don't think that's a good thing for myself. So I just want you to know this will be my last women's meeting, because in the next election I will not be running for the president of the Métis Nation of Ontario Women's Council. I believe it's time for me to leave, and I feel it's time for a new woman to come in my place. So I think it's really important to know that. I still will run for the vice chair of the Métis Nation of Ontario, but I always will support the women. They'll always be in my heart. So thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Sharon. Can I get a mover and a seconder to accept the Métis Nation of Ontario Women's Council report?
Pearl Gabona, Ontario, mover.
Joan Church, Manitoba, second.
Thank you. Do we have any discussion or questions? Seeing none, and question has been called. All in favor to accept the report? Any opposed? Abstentions? Carried unanimously. So before we go on to the next report, I have to make an announcement for the Resolutions Committee has met, and they've set their deadline for resolutions to be submitted, and that deadline is 4:30 this afternoon. Those resolutions can be emailed to Tamsin, and I have her email here. So it's Tamsin, TAMSINF@métiswomen.org. And on those resolution emails, if you could also copy the Resolutions Committee Chair, Carrie, so it's KARRIEBURZUIK@mmf.mb.ca. So again, email your resolutions to Tamsin and Carrie by 4:30. And on those resolutions, they request that you write out who the mover and seconder are, and as well as put a phone number on those resolutions so that if they have any questions when they're reviewing them, they can contact you and ask those questions. So any questions for the Resolutions Committee can be directed to Carrie. Is she here? Oh, she's at the back of the room there. So that's Carrie. And she can answer any questions for the resolutions.
Thank you, Cassidy. Okay, now I would like to invite Infinity Women's Secretariat spokeswoman Anita Campbell to present her report.
Thank you, Genevieve. Good afternoon. I'm trying to see how long my report was and try not to make it too long. So I just want to thank you for the opportunity to provide an update or a briefing on what Infinity Women's Secretariat has been doing since last year. Before I do that, though, I just want to thank, because I think it's important that we recognize and acknowledge those people that are surrounding us and are around us and are our supports. And so for me, I just wanted to thank the women that have come from Manitoba and are part of our delegation, because they've taken time away, no different than you have taken time away from your families and your communities and things that you would probably rather be doing than sitting here sometimes on a Saturday afternoon. And I think that's part of that commitment and that dedication. And, you know, I always say that, and I think I said it on Friday, that somebody said, I'm doing it because I'm nosy. And I said, I'm having a hard time finding a Métis woman that's not. Because I think it's part of that, it's part of our culture, it's part of who we are, it's part of our build that we want to know. And I think sometimes we look at that nosiness as being a negative, but I think it's actually a positive in terms of, because that's where I think that helping nature comes from. So I really wanted to thank the women that are sitting here and have agreed to be here with us. Also our youth representative, Alyssa, and also Carrie, I believe, has been made it's our first resolutions committee and our first LFMO assembly, and she's going in there with 2 feet. And so she's part of the resolutions technicians committee. So I really thank everyone for coming here. We have such a diverse group. When I looked at, so we produced for our annual assembly, we produced a document to hand out to our women. And I don't have any more left. I think I have 7. And so we're going to try to give one to each of the presidents or the spokeswomen from each of the provinces. And then if they want to share them amongst their women, just for them to flip through it. So because part of the reason why we don't have that many is because we just had our annual assembly. We just had it 2 weeks ago. At least it feels like yesterday. And so we had our annual assembly it's our 7th, so we're relatively still new. We had our 7th annual General Assembly on September 20th. Again, it was a very successful turnout. We had targeted roughly 350 women to be in attendance. Last year we targeted 300 and we ran out of things. And we were pretty much in the same boat again this year, where we were limited on some of the things that we had planned for. So I think next year we're going to target for 400 women to attend. And so it just continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And so for us, that's a huge positive to try to, I'm not sure if you've ever tried to manage and have an assembly with 400 women. And there was, I think, about 10 to 15 men that were in attendance as supporters. We joke around with some of them and basically let them know that they're not allowed to try to get numbers from some of our women. So it's been a really busy year for us. Like I said, time just flies by. We've had many projects, almost similar to what some of the work that LFMO is doing with respect to leadership and governance and those kind of things. And so it's been really busy in a sense of some of the work that we've been trying to do. And I think the more your name gets known out there, the busier you get, the more partnerships that you have, the more relationships that you build. And so that you have more meetings to go to, more work that you have to do. And so it becomes, time goes by real fast. And so there's this short time that we've had with respect to Infinity Women's Secretariat, we've really made a home for ourselves, though, with respect to our own Métis government and in the province of Manitoba. And so when we look at what our reason for existence was and why we're here, I mean, we've looked at to promote, empower, and enhance the social, cultural, and economic well-being of Métis women in the province of Manitoba, and then also to support our Métis Nation women throughout our Métis Nation homeland. And so part of that, and I think I mentioned it years ago and had continued mentioning it last year, was the first year that we received core funding. And to me, core funding is so important because it sets your foundation for getting other funding. It gives you some capacity to do some of the work. And we were able to get it last year from our own Métis government. And again, the Manitoba Métis Federation, our own Métis government, again allotted us for this 1920 fiscal year $100,000 as our core funding thank you. And so it gives you that capacity to be able to hire some staff and get an office and, you know, do some of that core foundational work that we're doing. And so it sets our standards for some of the projects. And I think that's where we were able to get some of the work, besides, I think, you know, some of the relationships that we've built with the federal government. With respect, we get nothing, I'll say this, we get nothing from our provincial government. We've tried and we've been denied. And so I think part of our tenacity is that we will continue to try to see what kind of funding that we can get from our government. But at this point, we really have been getting no support from our own provincial government. So a lot of our supports right now are coming from our federal government. So part of what we were trying to figure out is how do we maintain that connection with our women. Currently, we have almost 500 women on our database. It's our membership database that we created, and it continues to grow. And so part of what we're trying to do is how do we maintain or how do we get connected with our women, because it's quite hard when you're trying to cover off the north and some remote communities. And so we're actually encouraging our women to give us their emails, and that's how we're connecting with them. So when we go out and do some of these project workshops and these project training sessions that we're doing with them, we're trying to make sure that we're not leaving anybody out. And so part of what we're trying to do is make sure that they at least are aware of the events that we're having and that they have the opportunity to attend those workshops. There are so many women out there that are, and I'll use this word in a positive way, they're hungry for that information and they're hungry to be part of. There are grassroots women that are actually at that level where they want to be part of, and they have such fantastic ideas that sometimes I think we forget that because they're coming from a smaller community that they might not have that value to bring, but some of them, you know, are so willing to be part of and giving of their time and efforts to be part of those sessions that we have in those gatherings. And so for us, we wanted to make sure that there wasn't somebody that came to us and said, well, we didn't know what was going on and why weren't we invited? And so we're trying to make sure that those invitations and that knowledge and that sharing of information is there for everyone. And so we're going to utilize that database that we set up and that we developed and continue to do that. We're trying our social media. We've worked on some webinars that we'd like to put through our that, our social media. We've also looked at our website. So we had an infinitywomen.org as our website. That's what we're going to start utilizing more now that we have 2 full-time staff that are part of our capacity. With respect to regions, we participate quite a lot in the regional meetings that we have. So we have 7 regions. And so within those regions, they cover off right from Thompson all the way to Winnipeg. And so we do participate quite a bit in the regional meetings. It gives us an opportunity to provide a report. They put us on their agenda and we provide that report. And we're also able to connect with the women at those regional meetings also. And so it gives us another forum, I guess, for us to connect with them. One of my other responsibilities, and I'll just throw this out there, one of my other responsibilities is local capacity grants, and part of that is the MMF provides $5,000 local capacity grants for locals to do some of the work within their community. So for example, to hold their meetings, to do cultural events, and to also look at if the school is doing something or the elders want to do something, this gives them some capacity to do some of that work. And so it also gives me that opportunity to be able to connect with some of the local executives and some of the local women that are part of these locals. We also have a really good relationship with our regional vice presidents and our regional executive members. And so we try to make sure that we maintain that connection and that relationship, because at the end of the day, I think it's, that's where some of your support comes from, is being able to maintain such a positive and good working relationship with our colleagues and our elected individuals. We're very fortunate to have a supportive environment, and I think that's where part of our growth is coming from, is that we have staff from the MMF and we have affiliates from the MMF and that are part of our support system and our support network that we have. So it's not just women, I'll say, in a sense. We're not just looking at our women to be our supports, but other relationships that we're building with pretty much everybody. And so I think the bigger that your network becomes, the more supports that you get and the more positive feedback that you're getting. So our funded projects, like I said, I should have told you to relax and settle in. Sorry. So our funded projects, and this was part of what we reported last year, was we had that never give up attitude, and we never did give up, and we kept applying, and we finally got some money. So we've mentioned last year we're doing that human trafficking project, and so we are still finishing that one up. Part of the problem is when you get approval, and you all know this is part of the problem when you get approval, sometimes you get it at March 28th, and they want to know what you did that year. So that's some of the difficulty when you're deferring money and you have to do the work now that you've planned for last year, but you're actually doing it this year. That's some of the projects that we're all looking at, and I think that's some of the struggles that we all have. At the end of the day, I'd rather have that than not have that funding at all, so I'm really thankful for that. So we're going to tie up our human trafficking project that we had this year. It was addressing violence against women. And so part of what we wanted to do was work with the Joyce Smith Foundation, which we are doing, and that was the whole idea behind that project was to provide a safe, common environment to train teachers to present and inform students, and not only just about gender-based violence and human trafficking. We also wanted those educators and the teachers to spend time with the parents, because we wanted to educate parents on what are some of the signs, what are some of the things you need to be aware of, and what are some of the things you need to look out for in your own community when children, and so with respect to the whole thing of human trafficking and also missing and murdered Indigenous women. And so we wanted to make sure that that conversation was happening and that there was a committee that was going to be in place. And so we've identified the committee. They're going to remain in that community. There's no cost really to that committee, because we're going to be partnering with the Thompson region and also the Mumweetuck Friendship Center that's in Thompson. And then, of course, the RCMP and some of the school division and some of the other organizations that work within this field. So that's part of what we're doing with that one. Quickly, the Prosperity Through Innovation is a Métis Women in Manitoba project. That one was at 36 months. It's a 36-month project that we're looking at addressing barriers to economic security that are faced by mothers and caregivers as they attempt to try to re-enter or remain in the workforce. And so those are cohorts that we're doing, and we've started with Winnipeg, and then we'll move into the central Manitoba. So we're starting, I think, and we'll have another cohort next year, beginning of, next year being somewhere probably February or March. in Dauphin, and then looking and finishing up in the north. That one is looking at trying to make sure that we have some, I think it's a 16 or 18-week program that we're looking at offering these mothers and caregivers to look at how do they get back into the workforce, or how do they stay within the workforce. Part of what we're also looking at is not just having this project, but looking at what else is all being offered. So for example, if our MET program, which is our Métis Employment Training Program, we've partnered with them. We've partnered with our Louis Riel Institute to look at doing some of the facilitation. And then we're also looking at our Louis Riel Capital Corporation as part of that connection for entrepreneurs, because we're finding that right now a lot of our women are wanting to become entrepreneurs, and they're trying to figure where do they get those supports from. So we've been spending our time building that relationship with the Louis Riel Capital Corporation. The other one is one of the ones that I think women are really excited about, and is part of, I think, what LFMO is also looking at, is the Empowering Indigenous Women for Stronger Communities project. That one is a 2-year project, and that one's a leadership one. And so this one we're looking at trying to increase the number of women, and we talked about this before, that return to school and to work, and also to enhance their leadership positions in public institutions, looking at how do they get on some boards, looking at elections, and looking at how do they, when do they consider running for certain positions. Last year, we talked about some women that were approaching us, and they had been approached on whether or not they should consider running for certain elections that were coming up, because a lot of these elections happen way before what we think is actually being called for. So if an election is called in October, or September, they actually have been planning that for over a year already. And so we're trying to make sure that this project will look at the underrepresentation of not only women, but Métis women in civic and civil societies, and looking at how do we get them interested, and how do we prep them and get them ready to run in some of the elections that are happening, whether it's their school boards or their school councils, whether it's their provincial, municipal, or other civic elections. And most importantly, we want to encourage them to start looking at running for our own Métis government elections. And so whether it's my position, whether it's any of the positions that are around this table, or whether it's our Métis government positions that are going to be coming up. And so we're encouraging women we want to get them ready to start running in the elections that we're going to be held in the next couple of years, because time does go by fast. Those elections to us are around the corner. And so really, realistically, we only have 2 years before I'll say that women should be getting ready to run for certain elections that are coming up. So they're really excited about that coming through, and there's so many women that want to come to those. Here's the other one, that enhancing that governance and advocacy capacity. So that is the two-prong project that we have right now for us to look at our own internal governance structure for Infinity Women's Secretariat. So we're going to be working on our own mission, vision statements, and looking at our structure in terms of governance, looking at developing different policies and different paths, I'll say, with respect to where do we want Infinity Women's Secretariat to be going in the next 5 to 10 years, and doing some of that strategic planning. Part of when you look at strategic planning is also always making sure that you have those internal and external partners sitting at the table that are going to give you a different perspective than what you have, because you're already in it. And so for us, we want to develop a strategic plan. We want to look at our own governance training and start having some of those workshops. There are so many people that are out there that want to learn how to be a chair. What is your role and responsibilities of being on a board of director? What is your role and responsibilities, and what is fiduciary responsibility? And so those are some of the minor things that people want to know about, especially women. And so that project will work really well, getting them ready to run for different elected positions that are out there. So we're really excited about having those workshops starting. And altogether, like I said, you might plan to have some of these things, but now we're looking at having them collectively. And so we'll be doing 7 workshops, 2 days in each of the 7 regions. So we're looking at, spending a lot of time from home, going out and spending time with our women in the next couple of years. There's many things that we're involved in. We're involved in, there's a heritage fund that MMF puts on every year, and that's a nonprofit. It's a charitable organization that puts together a gala to raise funds. This year they gave to a biolab. The year before we donated to the Cancer Care Manitoba. This year they've donated to a biolab for youth through the St. Boniface Hospital, and so we always support by buying a table there. We've also, I'm not sure if those of you that heard that the MMF had also donated $1 million to Cancer Care Manitoba Research for the research. And so the president that was there, and the only reason I remember her name is because her name is same as mine. I'm not really good at, I forget names a lot, but her name is Anita with 2 N's. And so she was there, and it was really a very touching moment because she started to cry on stage, which I can relate to because I tend to have that thing where you cry when certain things affect you. But it was such a touching moment for them to get this $1 million and for them to now look at doing something, because cancer touches everybody. It doesn't discriminate, nothing. Everybody is touched by cancer, which is a sad thing. And so one day, hopefully it's not. One of the things, and I'm almost done, I promise. One of the things that we did in January of last year, we got a request from the University of Manitoba. They have what's called ICE, and it's Indigenous Circle of Empowerment. And they asked us they asked if we can host them. They wanted to come and meet with us to talk about leadership. And they asked about, what is about Infinity Women and also the MMF. And so 18 of these people came and spent the evening with us, and we spoke about what Infinity Women was. We talked about our Métis government, and we talked about leadership and what are some of the things about being a leader. Sometimes you don't choose to be a leader. Sometimes people choose you as a leader. And I honestly believe in the team effort and the team spirit and the team model. But within every team, you have to have a leader. Because if you sit around and if you do this and you practice this and you sit around that round table, and one of you will always speak first. Doesn't mean that's the leader, but one of you will always speak first. And then there's always somebody that's going to be the planner, and there's always somebody that's going to be the doer, and there's always a leader within those groups. And it's not always the person that talks the loudest or talks the most, but there's always a leader in every team because you have to have that leader. There's always got to be, even the wolf pack has a leader. And you can't be part of a team and not take on some of that responsibility. And I think these are some of the messages for me that young people have to learn. You have to have a leader. It's built in our nature to have one. And it's just what kind of leadership style that you have with that. So for us, that was a really important evening that we spent with them. We've attended also the Idea Fair. I'm not sure who else was in attendance there. So we got invited by the Canadian Institute of Health Research to attend their Indigenous Gender and Wellness Idea Fair and Learning Circle, and it was held in June. And one of the things that we've pushed on there, the purpose of that, first of all, was to connect with other Indigenous people across Canada, share ideas, and possibly create joint funding applications to this research institute. So we sent a delegation there, and one of the things that we're still going to be working on is putting together a human trafficking toolkit. Because I think it's still important that we still continue having those conversations and that there's still discussions being held at our Métis tables about human trafficking and what other resources are out there. So we're working on trying to develop that idea and submitting it for hopefully some supports of some funding and a grant. And in closing, we're going to be handing out some gifts. I think we're going to be doing it when everyone has done the reporting because we don't want to interrupt. So when the last province reports, we'll be handing out some gifts. We're also, as has become my tradition, tomorrow I'll be handing out some of our sashes to some of the women that, to me, have earned the Infinity Women's sash. We ask that you wear it proudly, like the Genevieve had said that they're going to be wearing, because I think it's something of value. And I was really glad in the video that she had said that you don't buy or just get a sash. You have to earn it. And I think I was telling some of the women earlier that that's been our concept for a long time. And part of it is because when I give a sash, I feel like I'm giving part of myself to you. So I hope that the women that receive our sash tomorrow, I hope you wear it with pride and I hope you wear it with honor. And so I'm going to finish off with, there's more I could talk about. It's been a really busy year for us. I'm really proud to be part of Infinity Women's Secretariat. Like Sharon, I'm trying to, and I mentioned it last year, I'm trying to do some succession planning because I think at some point somebody else should take over, and I think some point there should be somebody else sitting at these tables, and I don't think people should be the same ones for forever and ever, amen. And so for me, I'd like to be taking on a different role and maybe doing some other kind of different work. I mean, my support will always be with Infinity Women, and it will always be with Métis women, and it will always be with my Métis government. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here again this year, and I look forward to some of the work that's coming up with this coming year and seeing more and more of our Métis women throughout our gathering. So thank you very much. Can I just add, sorry, we also, I want to hand some of these out. We ran out, and part of it is because when you just finish something, you don't have a lot of time to go get more. And so hopefully next year I'll pre-order more things that we want to share. But so we have this magazine, and there's only 7. So again, I'm going to give to the 5 presidents, and if you want, we can order them for you. So let me know if you want. And this one is a group of students, or a group of people, some of students that put together these issues. And this issue is number 9, and this issue is all about the Métis. And they actually are not I'll say, where they're doing it to make money. They're doing it to get the messages out. And so this issue is all about the Métis. And so we bought some and we handed them out to people. So I'm gonna, again, give these to the presidents. I'll give one, I'm not sure if I gave one to Melanie already. And so it has Louis Ariel at the back. But it tells you who these people are and what they're all about. And it's a group that came together, just sporadically came together and started putting together these little magazines and stuff. And so I wanted to let you know that if you want one, we can order some for each of you and have them shipped out to you. They are really interesting reads to have, and most of it is very informative in here too. So I wanted to share that with you. And I think that's it, and we'll get you the gifts as soon as we're done. So thank you.
Thank you, Anita. Can somebody move to accept the Infinity Women's Secretariat report?
Victoria Pruden, British Columbia, I so move.
Thank you.
And Tammy Ma, Lafita Madeleine, Saskatchewan, I second it.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions? All right, don't see any, so we'll move to a vote. So all those in favor? Anybody opposed? Abstentions? Okay, carried unanimously. Thank you, Anita.
And next, we will invite Tammy Ma and Lafita Madeleine.
Thank you. Welcome, women of the Métis Nation. It is my pleasure to report to this assembly the work Lafita Madeleine, Secretary Inc., Board of Directors, has done in Saskatchewan. We have a 16-member board. 12 of them are regional reps from across the province. We just received some core funding back in February of 2019, and immediately we met and we hired our executive director, Karen Larocque, who is here today, and also our office administrator, Georgia LaRiviere. On our board, we have welcomed the LGBTQ2S member, Sheila Andrews. She represents them at our table, and our youth, Jocelyn Omerod. Jocelyn is right now attending university to become a lawyer. So these 2 women have been added to our board. We feel that it's very important that the youth has a voice there, and our LGBTQ2S community also. Where am I lost place? The board of directors, when we got our core funding in February of 2019, the board met in Prince Albert. And we decided, because we don't have the resources to meet every month, what we did was we bought laptops for each one of these directors. So we can meet every week if we want, or every month if we want. We Skype. And I'll tell you, Skyping is really, really fun. We have a great time. We laugh, and sometimes our meeting goes for 3 to 4 hours because we're, catching up with each other. And so it's, to me, it's one of the best communication tools that you can have, especially when you don't have the resources to bring your women in every month. We've applied to the Missing and Murdered Women and Girls Commemorative Fund, and I'm pleased to say we secured $185,000 to put on an event that will happen in Prince Albert on October 24th, 25th, and 26th. We'll be honoring 12 missing and murdered women across our province. And I'm pleased to say one of the women that we will be honoring is our national president, Clem Chartier's mother. Clem lost his mother at the age of 17, and so we will be honoring her. Part of this event we'll be making a documentary. These women, the families will be interviewed about their loved one because we want to know who these women were and if they're still missing. what kind of person they were, if they had family they left behind, and also there'll be a book to go with that film. Hopefully that film will be run on APTN because I want these women's legacy to always be out there. We've been suppressed and forgotten about for many, many years, and it's time that our Métis women that are out there that are missing and murdered is recognized. One of the things that Lafita Madeleine did when we met in February is we updated our policies. One of the things that we did put in is a lateral violence policy. I find that women should not be attacked on who they are or what their opinion is. So on our board, we have zero tolerance for that. So we have made up a policy that there will be zero tolerance, and each woman at that table has a voice. And no matter what her opinion is, as long as I'm not discriminating, it will be heard. And we all respect each other at that table. Right now, my 14 women that sit there with us, I'm very, very fortunate because they all come from all different cultures across the province, and they bring their community to that table. And they bring the needs that are needed in that community to our table. Let's see. I'm going to talk too fast. As you know, the girls handed out a red dress keychain. That was made by the girls, Brenda White and Sheila Andrews made those red dresses. And of course, with the missing and murdered women and girls, the red dress is the symbol. So those red dresses have been requested from quite a few missing and murdered women events that are happening across Canada. We just donated 100 of them to the First Nations Flying Dust. They just had a big event for missing and murdered women, and they requested those dresses, so we donated that to them for their event. Another thing that the women have been doing is we met with social services. In Prince Albert, we have what we call the Children's Haven. It's been running for about 30 years. And it is for children whose families are in stress or if the children are apprehended. We've been crying and crying that our children are leaving our communities. So we met with social services, and I'm proud to say that a Children's Haven will be going into the Cumberland House, and it'll be run by the Lafita Madeleine board there. That'll help keep those children in that community. The second haven will be placed in Buffalo Narrows, probably, I'd say, midsummer of next year. So that's another thing that we're working on. Another thing that we're working on, we're partnering with Prince Albert PA Community, Métis Community Housing. We're building a 16-unit complex, and 4 of those suites will be set aside for women coming out of incarceration. Because we come from, in Prince Albert, we are known as the city of jails. Women that are coming out have no place to go. So we'll be working in partnership with the NCC Services Program, which is run by the Métis, and they have the parent aides and the family workers to help the women there. We have GDI if they need education, and we have Maxi if they need addictions. So by working in partnerships with our affiliates out there, we will have stronger women once they go through their processes to become clean and get their life back in order. So that's about it. In closing, I would like to thank my board. These amazing women that I sit with, dedicate themselves, their commitment to us, and to help women and children. Their dedication makes my job look very easy. And also, I would like to thank Anita, Victoria, Marilyn, and Sharon, which I'm so sad to see that you're leaving, and especially Melanie for their support they have shown me through the years of me sitting at this table. I'll never forget any one of yous. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. And can we get a mover and seconder to accept Lafita Madeleine's report?
I'm off again. Oh, motion not, thank you.
Sorry, can you state your name?
Kelly Camacho, Ontario.
Francis Chardon, I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions? All right, seeing none. All in favor of accepting the report? Any opposed? Abstentions? Carried unanimously.
Okay, next up on our list is New Dawn Women's Society, so I'd like to ask spokeswoman Marilyn Lizet to present her report.
Thank you. First of all, if I could get all of you to join me in wishing our knowledge keeper, Diane, a very happy birthday, and she's gone. Well, I was going to sing, but okay, she's gone. Okay. We'll wait then till she comes back. Once again, I would like to welcome all of the delegates from across the Métis Nation homeland to the province of Alberta. I would like to say a huge thank you to Melanie Ominahu for all your help and support in hosting this wonderful gathering of strong, beautiful Métis women. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank President Audrey Putra for her support, her guidance, and being a great role model for us all. I want to thank my elder, Doreen, for the prayer, and for all of you who shared your stories and your ideas. That's why we're gathered here today, is to work together to move our agenda and our organization forward. We don't always have to agree with one another, but I'm confident that we can all work together for the betterment of not just our Métis women, but all Métis people in the homeland. Because we're quite a new organization, we were incorporated in 2012. So being a brand new organization, we've had some hardships with fundraising and funding because we are a new organization. So we're still in the process of building ourselves up into a viable organization. However, through our national president, Melanie, she ensures that we're still able to participate in various different levels, like the missing and murdered Indigenous women, early childhood and learning, the child welfare, those sorts of things. So we did receive funding last year. So in March, we held our annual general meeting, and we also held our elections. And at that election, so I was acclaimed as president again, and then I have a whole new executive that I would like to introduce today, as well as I went across the province because when we sit at this table, all of you are elected. And the previous process that we had to work with our provincial government, our Métis government, was that our women would be appointed from the regions. And so coming into our new election and our new provincial council that sit at the table, they agreed to the process that, and supported, fully supported and funded that I was able to go into each of the regions. We have 6 regions in the province of Alberta, and I was able to go into the regions and hold elections in each of those regions. And I'm proud to say that the amount of participation that we got in each of the regions was phenomenal. Some were a little low, but some were high, and there was a lot of women who came that I didn't even know, that said that they've heard about the organization, they want to come out and they want to find out what's it all about. And a lot of them did say, I'm only here to find out. I'm not here to run, but we had a lot of candidates in each of the regions as well. So we held ballot box elections in each of the regions, and we will host another AGM in March of 2020 so that we can alter our bylaws to make these elections according to coincide with our bylaws. So we'll start with my Vice President, Bailey Oster. She was acclaimed also at the last AGM. I have a new secretary, Laura Winiandi. She's from Region 1. I have a new treasurer who is Lisa Chambers, and she is from the Region 6 in Teepee Creek, but she's a rancher, and so they're moving cattle, so that's why she was unable to be here today. In Region 1, we have Lisa Marie Burke, was elected as the Region 1 representative for New Dawn. In Region 2, we have Paulette Dalside. Very, very proud to have her on our board. Same with Lisa. In Region 3, we have Lorelei Lance, and a lot of you will know her from before when we sat around this table as Alberta Métis Women. So I was very proud to have her elected as well and to put her name forward. Region 4, we have Joey Lee Marajo. Sorry. That was elected for Region 4. Region 5, we have to go back into the region and hold the election there, but we're going to do it in conjunction with the Region 5 AGM. And so one of the things that I do and how we function and how we're able to have meetings is I piggyback on everything there is. So they're going to allow us to be a part of their agenda so we can get up and we can talk about the organization and we can talk about what we do, and then they can see the process of how that we get the individuals elected. In Region 6, we have Carmen Legace. Huh? Legacy? Yeah. Really? Okay, I'm sorry. Legacy. Was elected in Region 6. And so part of our ongoing work in the stuff that we're wanting to continue to do is to create partnerships with the organizations that are already out there that provide services to our Métis women. And a lot of the times, especially in the northern parts of the province, we just get all lumped into one whole Indigenous pool, and a lot of the service providers who do provide the services to Métis women don't know our Métis culture. So part of what my regional reps are going to do is to build those relationships, find those types of organizations so that we can build one big, strong service providing resources for the Métis women in the province of Alberta. So that's one of the job descriptions, so to speak, that we'll have with all of them. So at each of the regional offices, we'd play the video, so we get like a touchy-feely, warm sensation, because what I wanted to do is create safe spaces for my ladies to talk and for them to know that whatever is said is in the meetings, or to share their stories. When we were in Region 3, there was over 28 ladies there, and so, that's, I just let the meetings go. There's no strict agenda. We just take it wherever we want to go. And they all stood up and shared their stories about how they came to be there, or if it was about how there was quite a few who actually only found out that they were Métis. And then there was one lady who was from Australia who was adopted out as a baby and came home and actually found her roots as a Métis and made connections there with one of the ladies that was there at the meeting, who knew, this person knew her parents. So, no. So, and then some of the places that we went into, we had conversation cafes. And I find that that's one of the greatest ways to extract information, because all you're doing is you're sitting down at a table and you're having a conversation. There's no right and wrong answers. There's no right, and you just write down, and then the recommendations just flow. I tell them to stop and they don't stop, they just continue on talking, and so we've extracted some really great information, and we talk about the self-government agreements that our governments have signed, and how we are going to play a role in that. How is this organization, is it going to be a ministry, and how do we as Métis women see ourselves involved in that process? How do we see ourselves making sure that venue is there just for the Métis women? So that's part of the Conversation Cafe. We talk about what can we do to support missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and their families. I want to come up with a campaign where we specifically in Alberta design a symbol like the red dress. The red dress is a beautiful symbol, and it symbolizes the First Nations, missing and murdered Indigenous women, but I would like something that is very Métis specific, that we've created, that is recognizable across the province as a symbol for Alberta to help support missing and murdered Indigenous women, and whether it's a campaign that we sell it or if we even just give it away so it creates awareness so we can start that conversation on how do we help and support them. So there's about 5 or 6 different questions. What do you want? What do you see this organization doing? What do you want out of this organization? What are the programs and services that are in your community right now, and how do we identify the gaps, and how do we help bring that voice and bring those existing programs to the communities? Sorry, I just went brain dead there for a second. Yeah, so those are some of the things that we have done. So I'm hoping that we can apply and get some more funding, because we did do the money that we got for the AGM, and we did do the reporting on it. So I'm hoping that we can get more information or more financing so that we can help the regional representatives in the province. And once again, President Patra allows me in my capacity to where I work at the Métis Nation of Alberta so that I can wear this hat and many other hats that I have to wear within the organization. The mandate of New Dawn and why we were created is to ensure our culture and our traditions and the knowledge of our grandmas and grandpas and kokums is kept alive and passed down through generations. One of the dreams that I would like to see is that we produce a book called, just for lack of a better title, Things My Kokum Told Me. You know, stuff about the wives' tales and the stuff that we grew up on. And like, my first date was awful. I thought I was gonna get pregnant if he even touched me because of what my kokum told me. You know, so, and to document those stories, because if we don't document them and we don't pass them on, you know, it's like when we're telling the stories about how we had to walk uphill both ways to go to school with no rubber boots and plastic bags tied on our shoes, and, you know, those types of stories that we need to pass on to our youth. So those are just one of the projects that I would like to see come into play. And we, in the Métis Nation of Alberta and Métis Urban Housing and Métis Capital Corporation, we just announced on October 15th, we'll be launching a new housing initiative where it's a first homeowners buyers where they can qualify for a down payment up to $20,000, as well as a home repair program, which again would be up to $20,000 for home repair. And one of the ones that I think is absolutely phenomenal is any Métis students who are attending school in a large urban centers can now get up to $200 a month to help them subsidize their rent, so that to help them with their education as well. So I'm committed to continuing my work with Métis women and the people in the province of Alberta in any capacity that I'm capable of doing. I will continue to advocate on behalf of the Métis women in all aspects of, like I said, all the many hats that I wear. If you need anything, please do not hesitate to contact me. If there's any information that you would like for us to share or anything like that, I can be reached through our website, the Métis Nation of Alberta website, through our New Dawn Facebook page, and then we're in the process of creating a New Dawn website that's connected to LFMO, as well as one that will be connected to the Métis Nation of Alberta website. But before I sign off, I would just like to give my Vice President, Bailey Oster, a chance to say a few words as well. Oh, wait a minute.
Oh.
Diane is here. Okay, everybody, on 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday! Okay, Bailey.
Thanks, Marilyn. In classic form, I got asked to speak about 5 minutes ago, so we'll see what comes out of my mouth. So I was elected to New Dawn about 5 years ago. I'm turning 25 in 5 days, so I was 19. I didn't know what I was doing, and I was kind of scared to be joining a group of so many amazing women. And I've come to these meetings now for 5 years as vice president, but also as a youth who's here to learn from all of you and to expand my horizons, to learn about what's going on not only in Alberta, but across the country, across the homeland. And I think this might be the first time I've spoken more than 10 words at this table. And it's not because I don't want to speak, it's because I didn't know what to say, right? Like, I knew I was young and I knew I was inexperienced, so I wanted to learn, but I think I've come to realize that I should have spoken, I should have said my piece, because the youth have a very distinct voice. We're not just the predecessors, we're not just what's coming up next, we also have a voice today, and we have an opinion and a perspective today that I think is very helpful to moving our nation forward, to moving the women forward. So I'm really happy to see all the youth representatives from all of the different provinces, and seeing other youth at this table and as special guests here gives me more confidence to speak my mind. Because I know all of you are very experienced and I'm not, but seeing other people here who are my age makes me feel more comfortable at this table. And so that's why I just think moving forward, pushing the youth, not agenda, but pushing the youth being here is, I think, very important. And I just want to thank all of you for letting me sit at this table for so long. When I started, I was still a teenager. I still feel like a teenager most of the time, but yeah, I don't know. And thanks for Marilyn for being such a great role model as president. I also work at the Métis Nation of Alberta. I started in the youth department this January, and before that I was in genealogy. I work as a youth coordinator for, we have regional representatives all over the province, and I kind of help organize them and push them in the right direction to run youth programs, services, run cultural enrichment activities, life skills programs, do weekly youth groups to make the youth feel involved. And I think for a while I thought the youth weren't interested. You know, that's why youth aren't at this table, because they're not interested. And I've really come to realize through working with my peers that that's 100% not the case. They just don't know how to get involved, and it is intimidating. So I really, that's really shown me a new perspective, and I'm so happy to see so many youth here, and hopefully more youth will begin to get involved as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your report, and thank you for speaking. All right, so I would like to get a motion to approve their report.
I'll put forward. I'll put forward the motion. Adrian Carrier from Manitoba.
I'll second it. Cora Bunn, Ontario.
Thank you. Any comments, questions, or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Abstentions? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
All right, and I can see Victoria making her way up to the podium, so please welcome Victoria. Okay, and the Métis Women British Columbia report.
Okay, I just want to introduce my vice chair, Wendy Schneider, and it's Victoria Pruden, the elected provincial chairperson for Métis Women BC. Before we begin our report, I just want to do a bit of an honoring. We lost one of our first ever Métis Women of British Columbia provincial chairs this past year, and so I just want to say her name and mention her. Many of you knew her. Rose Bordelon, originally from Northern Alberta, but residing in Prince George for many years. So if you could just remember her fondly. She was an amazing mentor, and I had the pleasure of being taught many things by her and being her assistant for many years, and I know a lot of you knew her. So if we can just think fondly of Rose and hold her in our thoughts today. I'm just going to do a bit of a presentation here, just reminding people of our mandate. We support physical health and well-being, fulfilling potential, cultural connection, community involvement, family well-being, education, and economic security. Part of our vision, which we're revising this year, is that we're entrusted to enhance and empower the rights of Métis women and ensure that Métis women's voices and political representation are prioritized at the community, regional, provincial, and national level. I'd like to introduce our committee members who are here first. These women have a lot of commitment and work really hard in their regions and support women in their communities. Nancy Larkin, Regional Women's Rep for Vancouver Island and Powell River, if you could wave. I'd like to acknowledge Lee Fraser, who's our representative from Lower Mainland, Greater Vancouver. Cheryl Dodman, also a Chartrand, regional representative from Thompson, Okanagan in the interior. Wendy Schneider, who is our vice chair, is also our elected regional representative in Region 4, Kootenays. Donnelly Short, our elected representative from North Central. She resides in Williams Lake. Alicia Fernando, who's our elected representative for Northwest, who resides in Smithers. And Carol Painter, Carol La Liberty Painter, who is our Region 7 elected representative who resides in Fort St. John in the northeast part of the province. So I just want to thank our committee for their commitment and for doing a great job 3 years into our 4-year term. We're all elected in our provincial elections in BC, so each one of us is elected into our role in mail-in ballots, and it's part of the larger Métis Nation British Columbia election. So we're in year 2 of a 3-year supported group of funding from Women and Gender Equality, formerly Status of Women. Last year, our focus was to re-engage women in the Métis Women of BC, build capacity and do a needs assessment. And I have an extensive needs assessment from women around our province. I think I've got 6 copies of that report with me, if anybody wants to see it. We're currently in the 2nd year of our Women and Gender Equality funding, which focuses on regional events and gatherings and a strategic planning process, which I'll be just showing you our infographic in a minute. And in our last year, which will be the last year of our 4-year term, we're developing women's resources, more women's programming, and toolkits to share with our community women's representatives. We have 38 Métis locals or chartered communities in BC, and so some of our representatives have really taken on resource kits already. Carol Painter from Fort St. John, Region 7, developed or initiated the development of a briefing toolkit for all of our community reps. So thank you for initiating that and for everybody who collaborated on that. We decided to engage in strategic planning, which is part of our second year focus, and we just finished having an annual women's meeting in BC. I think we had around 50 women participating in that, community representatives, women presidents, women community members, and we had our own wisdom council, our 4 elders present with us for our strategic planning. So we decided to just choose digestible, doable chunks for our strategic plans. So we have 4 threads of focus. One is communication and connection. The other is cultural knowledge, engagement and advocacy, and voices and governance. And we wanted to make sure that we made a distinct separation in our strategic plan. We wanted to focus on activities and objectives that were doable and realistic. In our needs assessment, everybody was sort of reaching for the stars in terms of Métis programming that they would like to see that's important for women. And what we wanted to make sure with our strategic plan is that the elements that go into the plan are doable. Things that we actually have the purview to do, that we have the mandate to do. So that's why we kind of broke it up this way. We want people to have a sense of accomplishment. Some of you in this room were at a wellness conference that we did many years ago, 11 years ago, called Sito-Scatawin. We wanted to focus on early hopes and needs assessment about violence prevention. And at that conference, we had children, youth, men, women, and elders do up these posters. They were sort of articulating their vision. And we have some of these. We finally, 11 years later, got a graphic designer to do them up, and we brought some of these posters with us. So if people would like one to take back, Cheryl's got them in the back there. So building community, prevention of violence, preventing family violence. We liked this one, the giving respect, getting respect, kind of a nice spiral wheel. Our communities came up with their own meaning of the acronym with Métis. So again, we've got those as giveaways. I want to talk a little bit about some professional development that we did this year. As probably everyone in this room knows, Métis politics can sometimes get a little messy. And certainly we as a women's council, a women's provincial council, have experienced, stress and sometimes, impacted cohesion and relationships. So we decided to take a proactive approach to that this year, and we engaged in professional development. We all participated in a process where we looked at our learning styles, our personality types, and how it impacts us in conflict, and how it impacts us in terms of where we can run into, butting heads with each other. And it really helped us to understand each other better. And then we engaged in a facilitated, supported process just to talk through some of the, struggles that we'd had as a committee and how we had been impacted by external forces. So even though we're promoting and we're sharing information about being laterally kind, I think all of us can own that under stress, sometimes our behaviors are not our best behaviors. And so engaging in more professional development, understanding, our challenges, weaknesses, but also our strengths and what our needs are, really helped us to understand each other better and really gel together as a working women's council. And I really want to thank all of our members for participating in that process, because everybody went into it with an open heart, open mind, openness to learning about themselves, and us learning about each other.
On a side note, Victoria and I are both orange.
Yeah, our chair and vice chair both turned out to be orange. Not sure how much balance that represents in terms of our council, but we have a number of partnerships. We get funding from Women and Gender Equality. We get funding from Indigenous Services Canada. We got some funding this past year from the RCMP. And we have a great partnership with an organization called EVA BC, Ending Violence Association of BC. And we're part of a partnership with EVA where they respect our Métis women's leadership right on the same level as the AFN Women's Rep, First Nations Summit Women's Representative, and Union of BC Indian Chiefs Women's Representative. So we've got a wonderful, great relationship where all Indigenous provincial level leaders are on par. Myrna McCallum, who spoke earlier today, is also a part of that group that produces the Creating Safer Communities program. So what this program aims to do is to share information, do train the trainer programs about how we can address safety issues in our community. So our regional representatives, our provincial council has discussed even this weekend, all of us doing that training together. So that's really positive. And one of the things that we're hoping to action with the support of EVA BC before our term ends, one of the only memorandums of understanding between a First Nations provincial representative organization and a provincial women's Métis organization is an MOU that we signed in 2008. I believe it was with Rose Bordelon as chair. But I may be wrong about that. We signed an MOU with the province, Union of BC Indian Chiefs, and Métis Nation BC, Métis Women BC, that we all could come together on preventing and reducing violence against Indigenous women in British Columbia. So that's something that we're talking with the Ministers' Advisory Council about supporting, and their outgoing chair, Chastity Davis. So EVA BC also supports a really awesome program called Be More Than a Bystander. And we were able to, with their help, bring the Be More Than a Bystander program to our AGM this year. And we had a number of Métis men, Métis male youth, and Métis male elders participate in that training program. And they send out retired and current members of the BC Lions football team to do a workshop for men to help them be able to recognize and end their own toxic masculinity, intervene and say something if they notice other men doing what we would call toxic masculinity, intervening in exploitive and disrespectful behavior towards women, examining practical ways to change behavior that degrades and disrespects women. And it was our first time that we'd ever tried to engage our men in a specific training like this, and it was reasonably well received. The people that participated, the men, male identifying participants, had positive feedback. There were some women that attended that presentation as well, both staff and community members. But we recommend the training. It was good. It was a good first time, and it's certainly something that some of the participants asked for again next year. So we want to thank our board, our MNBC board, for supporting that presentation. Some really interesting research took place, and I want to acknowledge two women in the room that had a lot to do with that research. One of them is Cassandra Dorgelo, who's our manager of women's programs, and the other one is Robbie Davey, who was one of the researchers on the project. We did a high-level presentation on the Thanks for Listening report. And what the Thanks for Listening report covers is an extensive survey. I think we had over 480 Métis women respondents. Robbie? Yeah, 483 Métis women answered a very detailed survey about their experiences of violence as adults and children, whether it be physical, sexual, emotional, financial, other forms of abuse and violence. So we'll be rolling out that report as soon as our review and approval is complete. And I need to acknowledge as well, we've got our Métis Youth of British Columbia chairperson here. The Métis Youth of BC are also co-sponsoring that research, that report, as a flow-through of our Sashing Our Warriors program, which is a full partnership between youth and women in our province. So I need to acknowledge Cassidy and her elected Provincial Youth Council for their involvement and their support in the production of this research. So, thank you. So we'll have that information hopefully be able to be posted on the Métis Youth website and the MNBC website, and if we have a BC portion on our Women of the Métis Nation website, when that is ready for publication, we can upload the PDF of the report. As we all know, I think probably in this room there's not a lot of Métis specific research out there, and with the demise of the Métis Centre at NAHO, it's been more challenging. We had some research partnerships with with them in the past. I just want to mention something that we've been talking about just in the past, week since Orange Shirt Day. I had the honor of supporting our Deputy Premier and Finance Minister, who in BC is a Métis woman named Carol James, and being part of a local movement in the area where I live to recognize Métis and Michif survivors, as well as First Nations and Inuit survivors of residential schools, day schools, mission schools, industrial schools, etc. And we've had some discussion in our women's community about really hoping that at some point we can have a recognition sash prepared either for next year or the year after, really honoring our Michif and our Métis survivors and intergenerational survivors. So I just wanted to put a little slide in there about that. Okay, could I invite the members of our committee up and Cassandra just for a short presentation, please? This is our manager of women's programs, Cassandra Dorgelo, and our committee who's coming up. And I've got a picture of us up there. We worked so well together, we showed up wearing the same dress at an MNBC meeting, so we had to take a picture of it. I'm going to ask Cheryl Dodman, who's our representative from Thompson Okanagan, to do a bit of a presentation here. So Cassandra Dorgelo, I really want to acknowledge this young woman. She came to us from the MNBC Ministry of Youth, and she's worked really hard to advance our women's programming and make sure that our women's funding was executed in a really good way this year, and it's been such a pleasure working with her. It's our loss that Cassandra is moving on to other opportunities, and we wanted to make sure that we took this moment to publicly acknowledge her, her beautiful spirit, her intelligence, and her skills, and just make sure that that was part of our presentation. So thank you, Cassandra. And just in closing, I just wanted to share another picture of the birthday girl who's in the middle there. We had the pleasure of having Diane Ludwig come out to BC for 4 days to do some women's healing gatherings with us and share her traditional knowledge. So that's the close of my report. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Victoria. Can we get a mover and seconder to accept the Métis Women of British Columbia's report?
Melanie Owenhio, I move that we accept the report.
Marilyn Lise, Alberta, I'll second.
Any questions or comments, questions? Discussion?
Just to say, I tried to steal Cassandra from it.
I just want to acknowledge the display that that BC has with our ancestral families and practicing some of the traditions of our ancestral people, the First Nations people, which.
Any further discussion? All right, questions being called. All in favor? Any opposed? Abstentions? Carried unanimously. So this brings us to a break. Health break?
Okay.
Melanie looks confused.
Ashley, can I say
Excuse me? The secretary hasn't had her report.
Yeah, she did earlier. Yeah, she did.
she gave her report when she read the minutes this morning?
She gave it this morning, yeah.
Okay, if everyone's all right with just continuing quickly with Melanie's presentation first, I know that First, I know that Anita had mentioned that she wanted to give out gifts. Did you want to do that before Melanie's presentation or after? Okay. I'll hand it over to Melanie.
So this is the moving forward part of our agenda, and I'm just going to be really quick. We have, as you can tell, a lot of ongoing work and things that we have to keep following up on. We're going to finish our blueprint. We'll be working on our strategic plan. We are engaging youth, by the way. We do have some youth activity things going on. I know Genevieve is representing us on Women and Gender Equality Youth National Committee, and she's continuously coming back to us to update us and keep us informed as to where that is and what's going on. And it's actually a ministers' committee at the federal government level. So we'll be doing all of our, continuing with our PBM. We'll continue to work with BOC and continuing to develop more proposals and try to get as many things. We have submitted a proposal that's a fairly significant proposal to it's called Yes for the Youth, and it actually is to help us get the opportunity to mentor young Métis women to take on more leadership. We're working with the Banff Center to develop a Métis-specific curriculum that will assist these young women in becoming leaders in our communities and leaders within the entire country. In fact, we're going to be approaching the various governing members to help us find placements for them to mentor these young women as we're getting training and more things going on. Website, we are going to be upgrading and working on our website. We do have a new website, but we're going to help support, get more linkages to the other websites on ours, and to keep building it. And actually, we've made it so that our website is going to be more interactive and more up to date. So we'll keep watching it. There'll be new things coming up on that all the time. And I did advise the board yesterday, we're going to continue to do once a year policy forums outside of our AGM so that we can continue to build and work on what's important to move forward and stay connected with grassroots community and get our diverse view of where we're at with various issues. I also want to tell you that I want us to look at or find a way to see there is money for this at the Wage Department, Women and Gender Equality, where we develop our own Métis-specific program around being more than a bystander. I was in BC when they had that, and I think it reaches out to more. I'm grateful to the BC Lions and for the process of the workshop and learning and training, but I think it's important, it is important for our men to be more than, because I think many of them are more than bystanders, but it also is important for everybody in our community to learn to never stand by and watch any kinds of violence or abuse. And I think the more people that we get on the train to say we're not putting up with watching anybody be bullied or be offended is going to be, it's what's going to help us change the legacy of ending violence in this country. So I want us to develop a program that's around the More Than a Bystander program that helps us do that for all of the Métis Nation. There's just a few things. I know we still have a meeting tomorrow, but at the end of tomorrow's meeting, all these little LFMO Métis flags, they're yours to take home, enjoy, and be proud of. The banquet. To all of our observers and guests, please feel free to come and enjoy the banquet with us tonight. It's open, so Pearl, that answers your question too. Yes, please bring everybody that is with you. happy birthday from me, Diane. I hope you have an amazing day today. Gelida, I want you guys to know that this is a special anniversary for Gelida. She has been a part of us and working with us on the missing and murdered Indigenous women and families. And it's the anniversary of the loss of her grandson. And I want you to give her a special hug and say special prayers for her. I'm so grateful that she has the courage to come and be with us all weekend this weekend, to spend her time during a time that's a very sensitive time for her. And the only other thing I have left to tell, yes, no. She's an amazing woman, by the way. The only other thing is I overheard Marilyn say that if you got Oiler tickets or whatever, you can have one of these carts here. So the first one to give her Oiler tickets or a season golf ticket or something. No, I just want to remind her, she's going to give away these carts, but she's going to come up with something special for you guys as to how she's going to give them away. And that's all my moving forward stuff for now. I think you guys are exhausted.
Okay, so this concludes the business portion of our meeting for today. Thank you guys so much for your attentive ears and great listening and presentations. We're going to have a break now for about 15 minutes, and then after that, we're going to do our fish scaling craft workshop. So it would be lovely if everyone could stick around to participate in this. That being said, we'll go on a break.
We're doing gift giving.
But first, gift giving. Yeah, the fish scaling, I think, would it be easier to do it out there?
Yeah.
So, okay, we'll do it in the other room then.
Yes.
And before we all run out of the room, I'd like to call our elder up to do a prayer for the day.
Thank you for all your presentations today. They're absolutely wonderful. The progress that we've made in the last 10 years for our women and youth is incredible. So I'd like to honor our sash today. I've been worrying about how can we pass on our sash? And listening to all the involvement of the youth, and with all their education this day and age, I don't have to worry. It's in good hands. So I really honor the youth today for their part and look forward to them carrying and honoring our sash. So my closing prayer today is going to be for the youth. God, our Creator, we lift up our teens and youth to you. We pray that each of them will know that they are wonderfully and fearfully made. God, our Creator, we pray that in their search for their sense of identity, they will come to know that each of them is your masterpiece, created to do good works that you have prepared in advance for them to do. God, our Creator, as they go about their studies and life, we pray that you will bring mentors into their lives to affirm the gift that you have placed in them. God, our Creator, help our youth find the balance between past and present in tradition and spirit. Be proud of your Métis culture and heritage. Our Métis culture is worth it. Te Twananan.